I'm going to call through for our minutes about so we can take note of who we have here. All right, I'm just going to go across my screen and state everybody's name. We have Ryan. We have myself, Aurora Martinez-Jones, Michael Oda, Kelly Darby, Michelle Andrew, Dr. Lewis, Kathy Irwin, Dr. Monica Faulkner, Denise Ray, Leslie Winters, Laura Darden, Hillary Sinquest, Tara Hollywood, Becky Laswell, Kayla Thompson, Katie Kirish, Robin Honig, and Yana Koleva. Let's see, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nine, 10. Okay, we've got enough that is more than a simple majority so that we can move our business forward tonight. I did get some notes from a couple of our SHAC members with some other obligations and letting me know that they were not going to be able to make it tonight. I wanted to make sure that we spared as much time for Dr. Monica Faulkner as possible. That is the biggest piece that I would like for us to focus on today. But we do have a couple of things that we do need to take care of. We need to, aside from Dr. Faulkner, we need to elect officers for the next SHAC year, and we need to talk about the recommendation number 4 from the Mental and Behavioral Health Committee. I hope everybody did receive. We got 2 recommended edits, and so I wanted to make sure that everybody saw that, and we'll go over that also in just a minute. But I wanted to first look at officer elections. So far, I have had 1 nomination, and that's from Michael, interested in vice chair. Is that where you landed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'm here to serve however I can, but if anybody else is interested in chair, I'm open to that. Are there any nominations from the floor?
Judge Jones, I would like to nominate Katie to vice chair. And,
all right.
And you as chair.
Okay. So Katie, do you accept that nomination?
Yes, I'll accept the nomination.
Okay. And so that's for me as chair, Katie as vice chair, and we have Michael also as vice chair. Any other nominations? And we do have a secretary position that is also open. Okay. So hearing no other nominations for chair, I'm assuming that you all, I guess, would want me to be chair, but let me formally put it to the vote. For chair, myself, Aurora Martinez-Jones, all those in favor, just say yes or yay, or raise your hand or put it in the chat.
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
Does anyone not want to vote for me as chair? Okay. Thank you. I will serve you all again. Very honored to be chair again. Then we have 2 people to choose from for vice chair. We have Michael Oda and we have Katie Kirish. I'll want to give you all an opportunity if you would like to make any statements. So Michael, you want to go first?
Sure. I haven't been on the SHAC for a long time, a little over a year, I think a year and a half. I took over Tiffany Harrison's spot, and I've learned quite a bit. I work hard to advocate for not only students in special education, but for all students in the district concerning all of the issues that come up concerning mental health and behavioral health, and weighing all the options and needs, both from district, the community, our staff, and the students. And I would love to continue that in the role as vice chair.
Thank you. And Katie?
Yeah, I've been on the SHAC. I was just nominated for my 2nd term. So I guess, going into year 4. I serve on this Special Education Parent Advisory Council. This is I think it's my 5th year in one capacity or another. I really love reviewing policy, and I really try when I'm in terms of recommendations to make sure we're reviewing current policy, doing as much research as we can, and getting as much feedback from the community, staff members, et cetera, and try and be really thoughtful about stuff like that. I guess that's all I would, yeah.
I think the best way to do this would be for us to put your choice for vice chair in the chat. If anybody doesn't have access to their chat right now, please let me know and I will take your vote orally.
And then it would be helpful, Kelly, can you do the thing you did last time where you put the heading for each vote so they don't all run together? Since we're voting on, what's it called? Recommendations later as well.
Okay, I can do that. But does that mean that we should take votes for one and then the other?
Either that or you can put their name in there and we can just count the names.
I was just thinking, put the heading vice chair and then everybody can put their names after that.
You.
Sorry, that was,
Yep.
yeah. So you put vice chair and then everybody can put their names. And then when there's this recommendation, I can put names. That was helpful last time.
I'm super
Thanks.
quick on the tape.
Becky, you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to check since I know Katie, but I don't know you, Michael. And I know our bylaws state that you have to have kids who are enrolled in the district and that you can't be an employee. So I thought I would check that with the both of you.
So to go over our bylaws, it's section 1 under Article 6, the elected officers. It does say that chair and vice chair must be parents or legal guardians of currently enrolled Round Rock ISD students. And it says no elected officer shall be an employee of Round Rock ISD.
And if I jump in real quick, we did clarify this week that guest educators or substitutes are considered employees in this case.
Okay. So does that provide you any concern, Michael?
No, I have 2 children in the district and I am not an employee.
Okay. So then we've already had the heading vice chair. If people can put in their selection, Katie or Michael. All right, I'm counting through each. And then Hillary, if you're able to count to double check me.
I am still scrolling.
Okay.
Okay, I got it. At least what I saw in the chat.
Okay, I have 7 for Katie and 5 for Michael. Is that what you have?
Let's see, 1, 2. Maybe I missed some. Hold on. I must have missed some. Hold on, sorry guys. Okay, let me recheck, but that's why we do this. So thank you for your patience, everybody. Oh, I forgot myself. Sorry, guys. I'm still, yep, 7 for Katie. I got it. And then, okay.
Yeah, and Cornell double checked also. You got the
Okay,
same count.
thanks. Yes.
All right, so it looks like we have Katie as our vice chair. 7 votes for Katie, 5 votes for Michael. We do not have someone listed as secretary or nominated as secretary, so I'm going to open the floor one more time. Yeah, Hillary?
Could I nominate Michael for secretary?
Michael, do you accept that nomination for secretary?
Yes, I accept that nomination.
All right. Any other nominations since I opened it back up? Okay. If everyone who's in favor of electing Michael can just say aye or put yes in the chat. All right. We've got a majority, so Michael is our new secretary. Thank you. All right. Very excited to work with you both next year. I will let you know over the summer, we will definitely be checking in to start planning for the SHAC year and planning out the calendar. All right, so the next piece of business that I wanted to take care of, and I wanted to let you all know I started working on the report with the recommendations that we already had approved, and one weekend wasn't enough, so I'm still working on it. Ryan, I did want to find out from you how early or how far in advance from the meeting do we need? I've given myself May 29th to get it done. I don't know if that's enough time to get it
Hey,
to the board.
yeah, if you get done by the 29th, that'd be great. Really,
Okay,
the day we want to shoot for, 29th is great, but the 3rd is really kind of when I'll share it with them. So,
well, then that'll give me a chance to send it out to our group first before then we officially send it to them. Perfect.
That's good.
And I'm going to try and get before the 29th, but that's kind of my latest date that I gave myself. All right. Thank you. So then we had 2 different wording for recommendation number 4. I'm going to put both of those in the chat. And I think it'll help if I do the heading also, so we can. So recommendation number 4, we had 2 different suggested language edits. So this is one, I've just put it in the chat and I will read them both out loud, but I know this is circulated to everybody. So hopefully everybody was able to read it for the before today. And this isn't going to be your first time digesting it. But for those who may be watching, I'll read the 2 recommendations and we'll call them recommendation A and B, just if we want to refer to them that way. So recommendation A, the first one that we got was to edit the recommendation number 4 as follows. To state that the SHAC would recommend that the board explore existing processes and make recommendations for additions in communication for a general alert when verbal attacks of staff and students on social media are known and verified by district administration so that parents are aware of risks and can monitor for their child's safety. So that was the edited version to recommendation number 4A. So edited recommendation number 4B is as follows. The Round Rock ISD board should direct district staff to form an ad hoc committee comprised of representatives from the Round Rock ISD police, counseling, behavioral health services, and secondary principals to do the following. First, explore existing processes and recommendations for additions in communication for a general alert when written and or verbal attacks of staff and students on social media are known and verified by district administration so that parents are aware of risks and can monitor for their child's safety. And number 2, provide recommendations to the SHAC and school board by September 30th of 2022. So that is edited recommendation number 4B. I know that there was Dr. Jennifer Faulkner, who was not able to attend. She has her son's 8th grade graduation, so very happy for her to celebrate that. And I told her that if she had any kind of written statement that she wanted me to read, I'm happy to do that, just so her opinion can be expressed, since she is a SHAC member. And so I'll tell you what she sent. And before I do that, I do want to mention also that there was a lot of discussion and debate from the committee about this recommendation and the edited language. So I know that there may be more discussion coming up. I'll just give you Dr. Jennifer Faulkner's brief statement before we open up for general discussion. She said she is very much in support of our recommendation moving forward, and if she could vote an absentee, she would vote for it. She said, I believe the rewrite from recommendation number B is compelling, but believe that there are general alerts being sent. The concern is the verification piece, which still may leave a parent in the dark about something involving their student. So that was her perspective that she wanted shared. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for discussion.
I have I guess a question. I don't know if you can answer this, but when it says should direct district staff, do they mean leadership or admin?
The board would essentially direct the superintendent, and then he would direct staff.
Okay, so you don't feel like, so you feel that's sufficient to in its meeting?
Yeah, I think everybody would know what that means.
Okay.
The board doesn't
then
direct staff anybody else except for the superintendent. That's kind of how it flows down.
And then I guess the other question is, does counseling imply the social workers? Or is that a separate department?
I think behavioral health services would
Okay.
cover the social workers.
Yes, counseling services, counselors are underneath counseling services, and then the social workers are underneath the behavioral health department.
I really, sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
Go ahead.
I like the second recommendation. I would really, the only edit I would make is instead of attacks, using the word harassment, because it has a really clear definition under the Texas Penal Code.
I also wonder if bullying should be used, because that has specific regulations, and everything I read under that code this week would be the implied intent of this recommendation, just not specific to the student who's being harassed or bullied, sorry, or the parent. And so, having a larger view of, okay, there's this handle or website that's allowing for harassment and bullying of students. So I'm wondering if that language should be used as well.
If we're going to add language, actually, I'm sorry. May I speak?
Yes, please.
Judge? Okay, thank you. If we're going to add language, I think harassment would be sufficient. And I say that because, in my opinion, bullying is another level of harassment, whereas harassment is like as low level as you can get as far as what we're looking to deal with. And bullying, I think that gets included in harassment. So to say bullying or harassment and bullying, I think it'd be redundant, but I do think it might be important to put language like Katie is saying that is recognized in that, so that there is something that can be pointed to that is connected to already existing policy, instead of something that could be seen as nebulous and, okay, well, what does attack mean? So,
and I want to remind us that, we're making a recommendation to the board, and we don't have to get bogged down in the weeds of legal language and losing something if we don't use the proper terms. I think what I want us to do collectively is remember about staying in our lane, right? We're the SHAC, the School Health Advisory Council. And when we start getting into the lane of legalities, then that gets a little bit confusing, and we have to be careful that we're not appearing as if we are trying to get into the lane of, what legal counsel would need to do or anything like that. That said, if we think about it from our lane in the perspective of a SHAC, are we not concerned about any of these things that are harmful, which could include bullying, attacks, harassment, all of those things, right? Because it's harmful. We're worried about the harm that these things cause to our students, parents, community, staff, mental and behavioral health, because that is our lane. So I just wanted us to keep that in mind as we're thinking about this recommendation, so we don't go too far into the weeds, because if a policy comes out or they do decide to do something else, they have professionals, they have lawyers on staff. I think I saw an announcement for the new general counsel for Round Rock ISD. So they've got people to do that to make sure it covers it. And I think we should speak from our heart of what it is we want as a SHAC. And we're talking about what's harmful and hurtful for the mental and behavioral health, for the wellness, for the development. Those are all within our lane. So thinking about that as we think about language. Becky, go ahead.
Sure. I'm trying not to get too technical because I appreciate what you just said, but I do have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Could a general alert be accomplished by having the principal send an email out to their distribution list, or is it something more specific?
I think that's part of the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I've never heard that as a technical term, but I wasn't sure. Okay.
Right.
Why would we want to alert parents about attacks on the staff? Just a general question.
Sure. So if anybody from the committee that made this recommendation and had thorough discussion, if y'all want to speak up to that point. I can say from my perspective, if we think about some of the things that would worry me, if there is some negative, harmful, harassing, interactions happening or communications occurring on the teacher for my children's class, to the point where I could be alarmed that there could be school violence directed at that teacher and my child is in that classroom, that's one thought. But that's just me thinking about how I would want to consider this.
Well, and something that came up in our conversation was the consideration of parents. I mean, parents are getting very, very active in school board, issues, and just really anything around the school district, not just here, but all over the country. And some of those parents are getting, really aggressive, going after teachers. And so I think our consideration was to really be mindful of where things are going, and that, it's no longer really just, kid on kid or student on student, but it's, it is parent and teachers, and it's getting a bit broader. So to make sure that all of that is considered, I think would really be helpful, just because it could show the scope of maybe a bigger picture going on. If one person is attacking a student and maybe somebody connected to, that student is attacking a parent, I mean, there are other possible ramifications for this, in considering how broad and in some ways aggressive forces are acting in and around, school issues. I think making sure to include harmful actions towards staff and the greater body and community knowing about that could really be helpful.
I would add too, just to play the other side of it, if we are thinking about, how these alerts, and it's something that can be sussed out a little bit more in the report and whenever we're talking with the board. But the way in which those alerts occur is probably going to be very important as well, because you also don't want to do the other thing and send out an alert about a teacher that then causes new concerns from parents when there wasn't any before. So I think it's, a very sensitive topic, and also without perhaps violating any confidential information or any protected information. So all of that can get very tricky, but I think the beauty of it is we can make the recommendation, and then if it gets moved forward by the board, it would be up to them to go through all of those things. But we can definitely say we've thought about those things, and we do think that there is good in having some kind of communication when those things happen, if we do decide to move this recommendation forward.
Okay, and then another sort of question, technology wise, the things that I've heard about have been on Instagram and Snapchat. And if that's still what we're kind of talking about, how would anybody know unless you are a follower of that anonymous account? You know, you can't even get into it unless they let you be a follower. And how would you even find out that there was an attack out there to address?
Well,
And
I
again,
think
I think that's what they would be doing, right, Ryan?
I'd say typically, we would develop the system as to how a lot of times, like when I was on a campus, you'd hear about it from kids and from parents would come that were followers or were part of that environment. So I think that's, again, it's just a recommendation. And then we would, if the board directed the superintendent to direct us to develop a plan, we would come up with all the particulars about how that might happen. But I would say most of the time, campuses or district departments become aware of that through students, through parents, not by being followed ourselves.
So it would be some student or parent says there's something bad out there, you should take action.
Well, and
Because
typically,
my husband's in
typically it'd be
internet
if we
security,
heard
so I
from
understand some of this
multiple-
stuff.
Yeah.
It's all encrypted. You can't, not just some random person can't get into someone else's account, that part of it.
I would suspect that it would probably be if we had like multiple students came and told a particular administrator about something, that saw some commonalities, things like that.
Okay. And then would that be different than the current anonymous alert system where someone can say, I see a threat happening to my school or student in my school, and that response is taken care of?
Well, I think that's one process that we have in place. It's probably similar to this, but that's just a very two-way communication. That's not like publicized to anybody else. Typically, if it's an anonymous alert, there might be some back and forth with that alerter, but I think potentially what it sounds like here, it could be communicating more broadly when something is known. I think
I remember a couple years ago, we live near Cedar Valley, and there was some sort of an incident at Cedar Valley that everybody heard about. So I'm curious if that's the kind of alert I'm thinking of, where every parent in the school was notified. All my neighbors knew about it because they had kids in the school. And this seems to just duplicate that same effort.
Well, I imagine there would be, discretion on how that is communicated, which is where I was saying, the type of alert that occurred.
So we have communication systems that we can blast out.
Yeah. And
alerts,
this just,
whether it's safety,
I'm not saying that this is a bad
weather.
idea, but it feels like what they're already doing. It seems like if someone knew there was a general threat to the school, they would send out an alert to the whole campus. Or if there was an individual threat to one student, they would contact that student's parents. I'm not sure how this is different.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And then if I, let me see the other question. I'd written it down. So one of these is talking about sort of reporting back to the SHAC and the school board. What as the SHAC do you think we would do about it on September 30th? And I think that's my last question.
Well, I'll let others speak up, but what that might do is help us better craft a more specific recommendation. That would be the big thing that I would think of. And if anybody else wants to chime in, Dr. Faulkner, did you have a thought?
No, no, I don't want to say I have no thoughts, but I think I'm just listening to the conversation and kind of taking it in.
Okay. Cornell?
I think the importance and members of my subgroup, please, correct me if I'm wrong. I think one of the reasons why number 2 existed is so that one, we can make sure we actually get something back, because I think members of our group thought this was important enough that this not just be something that we make a recommendation for and maybe never hear anything back as far as what has happened, where things are. And so I think we as a group wanted to make sure that there was something in place that we could at least hear back from. And then, if they wanted to bring it back to us and say, hey, we're here, this is what we're looking at. Do you all have any recommendations based on what we've kind of come up with? So that there is that exchange, as opposed to just, here's a recommendation, maybe something happens, maybe something doesn't, and it just kind of disappears into the ether.
Right. So then, Katie, I'll let you go next.
Sorry, couldn't find my unmute button. So I guess if this becomes, if it does get implemented and there is this new tool It seems like it has the potential to be easy to use. If you wanted to cause disruption, you could submit a bunch of anonymous alerts about online concerns, and the district would have to be running around doing damage control. Would it be easy to safeguard against that, do you think, Ryan?
You know, I don't know, honestly. So kind of what would happen next is that if this becomes a recommendation to the board, one of your final recommendations, then we share that with them in June. And then I essentially take all the recommendations back then internally and talk to the subject matter experts in each area. And we just put together our district response and give that back to the board and say, like, if this is something that you do want to move forward with, this is how we think we would do it. So I would have to get a lot more background from some folks that are more in that world day to day to probably answer that question.
Okay. Thank you. And Michael?
Thank you. I'm trying to remember all the points that somebody had said, but one, as one of the co-authors of this recommendation, it's not the intent to create a new alert system in the sense of, like the anonymous system. This is just adding on to the idea that if it comes to the attention of administration that, for instance, on Snapchat, that there's a handle that's anonymous that is specifically naming students or staff, but there's no way to know who is doing this, that in general, the school can issue a email or whatever and say, hey, you might want to check out Twitter at this handle, see what, monitor what your child's activity is on this. I know that my son was being bullied this year only because a neighbor showed me. And that particular Twitter, or I think Twitter or Discord was known, but because it's anonymous, there's nothing really to do about it. They can't really investigate other than, what other students and other parents are telling them, because it's controlled by somebody who's not going to let a principal or a parent get in and monitor. So that was the intent. And it's not just my story. There's several people that have approached me about this, including those on our own committee. And that's why we crafted this, to see if we could just, add something that could let parents know, hey, there's this thing going on, you might want to monitor it, because the welfare of my son declined quite a bit this semester. And that is the intent. It's not to create some anonymous system where people are reporting. It's not to add on or complicate what's already there.
Is the spirit is just that, hey, Round Rock ISD, if you know something is being said about me or my child, just let me know. Is that the simple essence of it? Like, if you know about something, just let me know. Because I keep seeing in both of the recommendations that the school district is aware and verified. The difference being not necessarily asking them to figure out how to go out and find it, but
Right.
just if they know about it, please let me know.
Yes.
Not we want you to go out and start looking for this and bringing it all together.
Exactly. That's the intent. It's not to go out and search for these things, but that when it's brought to their attention and it's verified, not just some rumor or something you can't really verify because you can't see what's going on. Well, there was another thought I had, but I'll yield right now because it looks like Katie has a comment. But
I know Denise got her hand up first. Let me go ahead and let Denise go, then we'll go to Katie.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I think the verified aspect of it is important so that it's not just willy-nilly, hey, I think something's going on. You should probably the example that we're talking about is this account that is an anonymous account, and screenshots were obtained by students and other parents who are able to kind of infiltrate this account posing as students. And these screenshots of kids naming other kids by first name and last name, basically cyberbullying, saying some really awful things, even saying things about staff, calling certain staff members pedophiles, and a staff member first and last name, I think was checking me out, or, you know, is like whatever. And then they are actually using a child's first and last name and saying, so-and-so is a rapist. I got sexually assaulted. I mean, they're naming children, people's names. And these were verified. They were screenshotted. They were sent to the district legal. So it's not just something that's made up. These, you know, even someone saying they want to blow up a government building. I mean, these are pretty outlandish, you know, things that are happening. And I think that it's almost like if you knew someone possibly had bulimia or anorexia or something, you would want to alert a parent to the possibility that their child could be self-harming or something. It's kind of the same thing. It's a verified notification that is important, I think, for parents to be aware, like, oh, my kid's name is outed on social media. I should probably take a look at their phone. I should probably check in on them and see if they're self-harming because of it. Because you see these other kids defending themselves when they see their name up there, they're defending themselves. Wait, is that what you think about me? I'm sorry, you know, it's like mean girl activity right there out in the open. So we feel like it's really dangerous to these kids' mental health. I mean, it's just, in our opinion, it's the definition of cyberbullying.
Okay. Katie?
I'm wondering, so I will share, my daughter, we had an incident last week where someone had said something about allegedly said something about my daughter online, and someone submitted an anonymous alert through the anonymous alert system about it. And my child's counselor directly reached out, was notified about it, and directly reached out to me. I'm wondering if we could do a better, to what extent we are. I mean, like, I'm in a lot of the meetings where we're talking about this stuff, so maybe I take for granted that I just know that the link for the anonymous alert system, and that I'm wondering if we're promoting that well enough. But I kind of had I mean, I know it's anecdotal, right? I don't know how it's being handled at other campuses, but it seemed like what is in place to monitor this is working correctly if an anonymous alert is submitted through the current system. So I guess I'm wondering how good of a job we're doing promoting that to parents and students.
I think that's a good point. All right, Michael?
So I do remember my point, and then I wanted to also mention that I think and Ryan can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but from what I'm understanding with the bullying statute is, if a person is named, the school is supposed to contact. The problem that is here is when it's anonymous, you can't get into the system to see, you know, all of the, you can't pinpoint point A and point B. I think that's where we're wanting to add that extra layer of communication. And then the other part of it is, it is right now at the principal's discretion. I remember when I was a teacher at a high school in Round Rock, and what happened was there was a lot of rumors going on about a certain activity that was happening in the school, not specific, not naming kids, but of a threatening nature. And the principal at his discretion sent out a letter and an email stating all of these things were not threats, and what you need to look out for on social media, to help your children be more discerning of the information that's being bombarded by them. that was at his discretion. I don't think there's a requirement that they do that, but that's what we're wanting to do with this recommendation.
Dr. Monica Faulkner?
Yeah, I was thinking when y'all are talking about the word verified, it made me a little uncomfortable because I'm not sure what we're considering verified. So if we're considering a screenshot of something verified, that doesn't mean it's true. And just from my experience working with survivors of sexual assault, if you have person A saying person B was raped, who are you contacting to say that something might have happened to somebody? That's a really specific situation, but I've actually seen principals really mess that up. Not in our district, this was a while ago, but that concerns me, the verified. I would really like more clarification on what we mean by that.
And it sounds like the main thought is verified that a communication occurred, not the substance of the communication is true.
And
Yes.
can I maybe jump in?
Yes, Ryan.
So just listening, and of course this is a SHAC recommendation, so I don't want to sway one way or the other, but it sounds like maybe what the intent might be is essentially like okay, we're in the education business, we're with kids, we hear about, not me personally, but folks on campus hear about what is trending when it comes to things that parents would want. I'm a parent, I've got kids in middle school, I'd want a heads up about so I could talk to my kid about it. So I worry that maybe we're going way too into the weeds on specifics around the recommendation, and maybe really what you're just asking for is I don't know what it would look like, but it could just be like a website that we update and then we put out e-news like, parents, these are things that are happening online, not just in Round Rock, but maybe other places. Talk to your kid about it, be aware. You know, I just wonder if maybe we're getting too down into the specifics about specific incidents, and really what you're asking for is we see something like that Instagram account happening, and maybe it would have been better if you'd have had a website to go to and known that that was there and you could talk to your student about it.
So I
Without
think
going
that's-
into details, what you're
Yes.
saying, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
not going into details. That's exactly what it is. We're getting into the weeds of things. We just want parents to be aware, like, hey, but for me personally, I don't want to go to a website. A lot of parents don't read the e-news stuff. They get it in the emails or whatever. But when we get the news blasts, like for example, last week we got one from Round Rock High School that said, hey, there was an airsoft gun on campus. It was a message from the principal, just wanted you to know that there was nothing to it. Everyone's safe. There was, no harm came. Great. That's all I need to know. But I think if we could have that generally as a news blast, just like, hey, I don't know, any news blast that we have that comes out, hey, the superintendent got reinstated, whatever. It's just a news blast, but this is pretty concerning. So I think that's, if I'm speaking correctly, for Michael, the way that, what we talked about, that's kind of the notification that we would like, is for parents to be alerted to potentially harmful things.
So I want to make sure that we give enough time to the last piece that we have to take care of business today. So I'm going to let Kelly go, and then Becky, and then if we can wrap up discussion, I'll take any motions that there may be. So Kelly.
I don't want to take up. I think I'm good. I think what you said, Judge Jones, earlier about really the heart of the recommendation is that parents are empowered to know when situations are happening where their kids might be at risk of hurting themselves because of something that's so hurtful is happening, just in a way that we haven't done before. And I think what I'm hearing from some members is that there's some repetition or perhaps some redundancies that we're talking about. But I feel more comfortable with this B recommendation, I think, because we're asking the people on the inside of the district who are closest to the execution of such a recommendation to inform what that might look like. And I think that's what the committee was really lacking. originally with our recommendation. The only thing I think that we could consider adding, not that the district would not include general counsel in a conversation about this, we could consider adding general counsel to the ad hoc committee to sort of make sure that the district is not at risk by like seeming to overpromise on something that they can't, you know, like if sometimes like the verified question, right? Like what Monica was talking about, like they might check something out and find that there was nothing to it, and then turn out that they were wrong. And does that open them up to liability? I think those are questions that deserve to be explored through that ad hoc committee. But otherwise, I think that the spirit of this recommendation is really important because I do think social media is a big danger to our kids' mental health. Thank you.
Okay. And then who else? Becky, did you have something you wanted to say?
Not really. My main thought is more meta to how the SHAC works. This feels like the kind of thing that we could have dealt with a couple months ago and hashed all this out back in February. So we all could have had time to debrief it. And maybe that's just a thought for next year.
Yeah.
That if there's going to be something like this that comes up, that we can deal with it before May when we're all busy.
And that just leads to the discussion we'll have as far as if we need to push out the written recommendations even earlier. And I will say it's been hard virtual, but we got written language out, I think, a little earlier than we would normally hash it out. So we can continue pushing that deadline earlier and earlier. And then my only other thought is I was just wondering if there was a meaningful way to make sure that the clarity in verified as to there was an actual not the substance of it, but that there was some kind of communication, and then that we are focused on attacks in the sense of harmful to the person at which it was directed. So those were the only two other thoughts that I had as far as the recommendation B, if we were looking at that one in particular. But at this point, are there any motions that anybody would like to make related to recommendation number 4? And in the report that I can mention, because we also got the, Ryan sent us that policy on social media interactions as well. I can just outline that what happens on social media was a big topic of discussion this SHAC year. And so that's going to be a part of the report anyways, just as far as like what we talked about from meeting to meeting. I'll just be sharing that, but.
I think that'll be really important for them to be able to know, hey, there was a lot of discussion around this. So they do get, okay, this is not just something that kind of, we shot from the hip on, but we actually really discussed, really hashed out, got into the weeds, came out of the weeds. I mean, we really worked on this. So they will hopefully, take it as seriously as we did. So.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to table 4A and adopt 4B.
Okay. So the motion is to adopt 4B as the formal recommendation number 4 for the SHAC.
Yes.
And is that as far as moving it forward to the final report?
Yes.
Okay.
I second that motion.
All right. So all those in favor of adopting recommendation 4B as the recommendation that we move forward in the final report to the board, please either say yes, aye, wave your hand, drop it in the chat. Oh, and a couple of people accidentally sent it direct message to me. So if you could just double check that you didn't send it just to me, that you sent it to everybody. Your vote. All right. Seeing the chat slow down. All those who are opposed, please put no, put it in the chat, say no, or wave your hand at this time, or put some other indicator on your Zoom if you are not in favor. Okay, anyone want to abstain? You can indicate now or put that in the chat. So we have majority in favor of the motion, none opposed, and a couple of abstentions. So with that, the motion carries. And so the language from 4B is the recommendation number 4 that will move forward. Thank you, guys. I know this has been a tough process, but I appreciate everybody being very actively involved. All right, and so then I'll add that one to the report. I'll work on that and to get the draft out to the rest of the SHAC through email. Happy to answer any other questions through email. And now I'm going to yield the time over to Dr. Monica Faulkner.
Okay. So our committee, I sent out a really long document to everybody, and I'm not going to go through it because it's really long. But I will go through the recommendations, and I'll just go through them and then have a discussion, and then probably I'll make the motion to adopt all of these as is, unless we hear that there's some dissension and we need to go through one by one. So basically, our committee was tasked with figuring out the sexual health education curriculum for middle school. And I want everybody to keep in mind that we had several constraints, right? So Texas law requires that you teach abstinence as the most, I forget what the language is, Robin always corrects me, but basically that abstinence is the best choice for kids to make. We also were constrained by the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills and what they mandated be taught in each grade level. The other constraint was that a lot of curricula were still trying to get up to date on those new TEKS that were released. And there was only one textbook that was approved by the State Board of Education to cover that. We didn't have to choose a textbook though. So our committee very quickly realized, and I would love for us all to kind of keep this in mind, that there is not a single curriculum out there at all that is going to meet the needs of every child at just the right time in their development. And we kind of all agreed with that. And we all came from this topic from very different places. But that was one of our first realizations, is that one, there's nothing that absolutely stood out to us that we were like, this is great. And two, we knew that we couldn't find something that would meet the needs of every single child or align with the values of every single family. And so we essentially reviewed 8 different curricula, and we decided that the one that we disliked the least was the textbook. And so we are recommending that Round Rock adopt the Texas Health Skills for Middle School textbook. And then the only chapters that we're recommending are related to the sexual health education TEKS specifically. So part of chapter 14, which talks about environmental health as it relates to pregnancy, like lead poisoning and those sorts of things. And then chapter 15 on promoting healthy relationships, chapter 16 on human development. And then there's a companion text that really goes more into depth of the sexual health education topics. So chapter 17, puberty, 18, preventing and responding to violence, 19, making responsible sexual decisions, and 20, sexually transmitted infections and HIV and AIDS. And then along with that, I think y'all probably saw some of the emails about this, but we really wanted to know, okay, so if we adopt the textbook, how is it going to be taught in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade? And we heard from the district that it is fairly standard practice that when they do adopt a new textbook or curriculum in this, that they have a work group come together of teachers who lesson plan everything. And so we are asking in our recommendation that that work group be established and complete lesson plans that are also provided, and the SHAC is also provided updates. We also wanted them to consider a couple things when they were doing lesson plans. One is that they can use supplemental materials if they fit within the teaching plan, but they don't have to use everything, because there's quite a few different activities that people can choose from. There were some activities that we were like, this is not useful. So one workbook lesson in particular was just very odd. It was a conversation between a married couple about whether or not they should remain abstinent. And we just didn't quite understand it or think youth would understand it. So we suggested just not using that. And then we wanted, there was one activity that we suggested it just not be a role play, but just a discussion. And it was, I can't even remember what it was, but it would just be better as a discussion, we felt. So we also thought in the feedback we got from community survey and stakeholder survey, teacher surveys, a couple of people raised the issue of, the preventing or responding to violence, and how that might be triggering for some youth. And we agree with that. However, I also think that it could be a catalyst for youth getting help or realizing that what happened to them is not their fault. So we do think that chapter is important, and we just are recommending that it be taught in conjunction with a counselor or school social worker, or that counselor or school social worker is aware when that content is being taught so that they can just be prepared for student support. And then finally, there is some online safety in the textbook, but we really wanted to make sure that was covered. And so we're recommending lessons in online safety from Common Sense Media. There's a digital citizenship curricula that's specifically for grades 6 through 8. So that is our first kind of chunk of the recommendation. The second one here is we are recommending, because again, we felt like when the stakeholder survey that people took and the teacher survey, they were really mixed. There was mixed feedback, right? When we were going through the comments, some people were saying we need to do comprehensive sex ed, and other people were saying there's no place in school for this. And then other people were saying it needs to be abstinence-based. So we felt like we wanted to offer something different for families should they want it. So we asked that in this recommendation that the school district should provide additional options for students to receive comprehensive sex education outside of school hours with the following guidelines. We want one workshop or curriculum offered during the school year in each learning community. Obviously, parents would still have to opt into that. And that they could do it online or in person, depending on what that learning community felt was best for them. We also are recommending that parent education classes in each learning community be provided so that those parents who don't necessarily know how to talk to their kids about these topics get a little bit of support. So the recommendation is that parent education classes are in each learning community that focus on teaching parents how to increase communication with their children related to sexual health. And then the final recommendation there, I think it's the final. Oh, no, it's not. Is for the 4th and 5th grade, which has not been consistent across the district. Different schools do this differently. We are recommending that they utilize the Always Changing and Growing Up video for puberty content for 4th and 5th grade students. And then in the spring of 2023, we want to be able to see like, how is this working get feedback and come back and make any changes that we need to. So we want to make sure that there's an evaluation component done. And that is it. It is quite a bit, and I'm happy to take questions or have discussion. And Judge, I don't know if you want to just call on people like you've been doing, that would be helpful.
Sure. And so let's go ahead and open up for discussion. Anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments that they would like to make? Start by saying thank you, Dr. Monica Faulkner, for taking this on. I don't know what we would do if we didn't have you on the SHAC to do this.
It's our whole committee, I will say, like our
Thank
whole
you.
committee really.
Thank you to the whole committee. You all did a lot of hard work this year. All right, Katie. You're on mute.
I clicked the wrong button. Here I am. I was just wondering how adaptable the curriculum is for students that have disabilities, especially developmental disabilities.
Yes, so totally hear you on that. I do know just from my own professional work that there are very few curricula that are adaptable for persons with disabilities. There are some that are being worked on for folks with cognitive disabilities, but this in particular, I think it would be up to the parent to see like what content would be appropriate. One of the thoughts our committee had was that in recommending other options outside of school hours, that might be something that could be recommended for the students and then maybe even the parents.
Sorry, just to follow up about that. I do think that's important because there are definitely a population at risk, especially of sexual abuse. And so that there's a gap there really is a little concerning to me.
Yeah, and I think a piece of that, of course, our teams haven't, sat down and looked through the curriculum yet and seen where I'm talking about our special ed department and others that'll work with the general ed teams putting the units together and the lesson plans. So I think once they can dive in there and get more of a look at it, I think we'll see some of that. Obviously, those are very individualized, different needs for a wide range. So I agree with you that that's an area we'll need to address.
And I can bring that up to CPAC as well if we could coordinate on addressing some of those gaps. I think it would be good to reach out to the community of parents that have children with special needs directly.
Yeah.
That would be perfect because I don't think our committee felt like we had that expertise or that it was within our scope of what we were doing to really make that recommendation within this time frame. So I think that would be a perfect solution. Okay. Yeah.
All right, Michael.
Thank you. Actually, I was trained in a program out of Texas Tech to address specifically individuals with developmental disabilities, autism, intellectual disability, and I am licensed to share. So anytime you want to look at that, it probably, if you're wanting to use it as a supplement in the school, your committee would probably want to look at it side by side with the curricula requirements. But it was designed for clinical and school use. So anytime you need to see that, I can provide a copy.
Yeah, can you maybe send that to Katie? And I feel more comfortable if parents of that specific population like made a recommendation, whether it happens right now or later on, I think.
Yeah, Michael, I would really appreciate that. If you could send it to me, that'd be great.
Sure. Biggest caveat to that is in what Texas Tech said, a lot of the messaging or the way it's taught in the general classroom creates problems for kids with these disabilities. And so they have very specific instructions that you might want to look at to say, okay, teachers, when you have a kid on the spectrum, make sure you do this as well as what you're doing for the general population.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other discussion? Okay. Seeing no more discussion, is there any motion that anyone would like to make?
I would motion that we adopt the recommendations as written.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Right. Any additional discussion? Okay. All those in favor of adopting the recommendations as written to move forward to the board, go ahead and say yes, I, wave now, indicate on your Zoom, or drop that into the chat. All right. A few more coming in. Okay. This time, if there's anyone opposed, say no, wave, indicate on your Zoom, or drop no into the chat. All right, and if anyone wishes to abstain, please indicate now on your Zoom, wave, or drop abstain into the chat. All right. With that, the motion carries and the recommendation as written will move forward to the board. Thank you again to the whole committee. Thank you to Dr. Monica Faulkner for your hard work this year. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if I can just jump in, like on behalf of everybody in the district. I know that team, everybody on the SHAC, but that team in particular, this year, we just cannot thank you enough for the amount of hours and care that really went into finding some common ground about this recommendation. So I just want to thank everybody on that team for I think finding something that's going to meet as many needs as we possibly can and be successful and move forward. So thank you.
Yeah, I just have to call out my committee members, if y'all can indulge me in a love fest. Hillary, Robin, Kayla, Leslie. I mean, these moms were like at gymnastics and basketball on phone calls, and they coded qualitative data, and it was just amazing. So
awesome. You guys are amazing. Wonderful. All right. Well then, any old business that we need to take care of? Any new business that we need to discuss? All right. So then, Ryan, we're still thinking June the 16th is going to be the board meeting for both the general SHAC recommendations and very specific presentation from the Human Development and Sexuality Committee, right?
Yeah, correct. And I would say that that's also the meeting probably where some board members will nominate and they'll vote on any new members for next year. So if anybody wants to come to a board meeting, it'd be a good one to obviously be a lot of SHAC business that night. So just want to invite you all to the meeting.
Thank you. All right. Well, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion that we adjourn.
Seconded. All right. Thank you all. Have a great evening. Thank you for a great SHAC year. See you all on the 16th.
Great job, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.